So before I begin this Theory Explains video, I should just explain to you first that this is quite an old one. I originally intended to release this just before I went on my big break, like a few months ago, but I never got around to doing it. I only found it recently, pre-filmed and all that, so I just need to edit it and film this little bit explaining it. So, hope you guys enjoy it, and remember, if you enjoyed it, like and subscribe. Enjoy the video. Hello everybody and welcome to another Theory Explains video. My name's Harry and today I'm going to be sort of explaining something that confuses quite a lot of fans. The different ages of comic book. So I know quite a few people are a bit confused by the idea of the different sort of comic book eras and that. And I was too when I first started out, but it's really simple, don't worry about it. Basically, the comic book ages are a way for comic historians to sort of classify when comics came from and how their themes sort of are reflected in the comics. So I'm going to do a quick rundown on all the themes. So stay tuned if you want to find out more. So first of all, we're going to look at the Golden Age, which sort of existed between 1938 and 1950, which was sort of, if you know history, World War II and the Great Depression. So let's get analysed. So the golden era of comics kicks off with Superman being created in 1938 in Superman Action Comics. Subsequently, Superman sort of becomes America's most famous superhero and takes over America more or less. A year after that, Timely Comics, which is Marvel Comics' predecessor, was formed. A year after that, DC pumped out the Justice Society of America, starting the Superhuman team, sort of team up after that. And a year after that, Wonder Woman and Batman joined Superman in Detective Comics. What's quite interesting about this period is, because it's the start, a lot of terms are being used here. So you've got origin stories, rogue galleries, stuff like that, which I think is pretty interesting because it's the birth of comics. At this time, because it was World War II and the Great Depression, comics provided a cheap source of entertainment, which kept people going and all that. Unfortunately, though, sales dropped towards the end of the Golden Era as fears of delinquency and juvenile delinquents were sort of associated with comic book readers. So, bit of a sad ending to what should have been the birth of something spectacular. Okay, so now we come to the Silver Age of comic books, which took place between 1956 and 1970. During this time, a lot of the Golden Age heroes, which were invented during the Golden Age, were revamped and reinvented, with the Flash and Green Lantern being some of these characters. As well as this, in 1961, the idea of superhero teams was revamped with the Justice League of America. In that same year, Marvel Comics was sort of created from Atlas Comics, and their first comics, Fantastic Four, became a huge success, with the superhero family being a major part of culture. As well as this, Marvel caught on to super team craze and created the Avengers in 1963. In the 60s, Iron Man and Thor would later join the roster, with Captain America being sort of revived in 1964. However, it wasn't all plain sailing for comics. During this time, the Comics Code Authority restricted what could be published. Basically, publishers had to follow a strict guideline, otherwise their comics wouldn't be sold, which it's kind of good and it's kind of bad, but I suppose you don't want too much graphic content and violence, which leads us right up to Bronze Age, which took place between 1970 and 1985. During this time, the Comics Code Authority, which I've mentioned in the previous age, began to lose influence as many comics began to reflect social issues. Stories grew darker as stakes got higher, and in fact, during The Amazing Spider-Man, Gwen Stacy was killed right in front of the reader's eyes. This became grittier as supernatural themes and horror themes began to become pretty much normal in comics, which led to more interesting stories. As well as this, several characters debuted, such as Black Panther and Jon Stewart, all of which are black protagonists who play a much larger part in the comic book universe. Also during this period, superhero blockbusters became quite popular, along with movies such as Star Wars and Jaws. In 1978, the Superman adaptation became quite popular, achieving both critical and financial success. As well as the film's financial success, there came a new sort of way for companies to earn money. Products, things like t-shirts and action figures would, bring in more revenue for the companies and allow them to afford more writers like Frank Miller and Alan Moore, who defined sort of the gritty aesthetic of comics with titles such as Watchmen and Daredevil. However, in 1985, DC tried a new move. They tried revamping the universe entirely. This was as a result of the Crisis Infinite Earths event, which sort of changed DC's continuity in many ways, such as including Superboy's origin and restoring Jason Todd. But yeah, pretty cool. And it's sort of carried on today, right through to the modern age, which I'm going to cover right now. So, as I said previously, gritty and realism continued to be a major trend in the modern age, which started from 1985 and is still pretty much going quite strongly. At the start of this period in the early 1990s, there seemed to be an upward sort of trend in reading comic books. It became more popular, especially in 1993, when X-Men issue number 1 sold millions and millions of copies. However, this wasn't to last, as during the mid-90s, there would be a sharp decline which would continue up until the 2000s. As a result of this, Marvel almost became bankrupt, and it was quite a hard time, until big corporations such as Warner Brothers and Disney bought the rights to DC and Marvel. This resulted in huge adaptations, with Christopher Nolan and Tim Burton creating Batman adaptations, and the huge 2012 record-breaking The Avengers, which was a pretty good save. As well as this, DC decided to reintroduce the DC universe by launching the New 52 comic line, starting all issues and all stories at number 1. This was quite big, especially when you consider Superman at that time had reached its 904th issue. So yeah, pretty big, and that's still going to continue. In the foreseeable future, we've got films such as Doctor Strange, The Justice League, Wonder Woman, all coming out, and they're all going to be really big. So, you know, in the future, it's going to be pretty big for comic book fans, especially because colleges and universities have launched subsequent art sort of courses. So, bright future from what I can see. And that's pretty much everything you need to know about the ages of comics. I hope you like this video. I know I talked quite a lot about it, so if there's anything that you were confused with, just leave a question or something. I'll be happy to answer it. If you like this video though, be sure to leave a like and a comment, and if you want to see more like this, remember to subscribe. Until then, Harry out.